What does it look like in Mark Williams' class anyway?
Chaos.
Kind of like a thunderstorm.
At first, if you were expecting a traditional environment, you would think that there wasn't anything going on good.
Mark's classroom is busy, it's productive, it's noisy. Students are working, they're interacting with each other, with him as a teacher.
You know, we've been born and bred to think with inside the box of what a traditional classroom should look like. And I think a big part of that is because of the discipline that needs to take place within a classroom. But in an alternative setting, discipline is never the issue. You know, the issue is content, it's curriculum, it's instruction, it's getting the kids where they need to be since they're behind. And when kids are engaged in the lesson because they have an active involvement and engagement in what's being taught to them, discipline is no longer an issue. And so, since the kids are individualized and they're working on their own assignments, everyone's going in a different direction. And as a result, an effective, impactful classroom at an alternative school is very chaotic.
Kids are writing, they're researching, they're up getting confirmation or asking questions, sharing their information, and even, teaching somebody else how to do something. Mark not only teaches, but he teaches his students to be teachers. And so it's like a big family in that classroom, and it works well as a unit. Everyone knows what to do, but they also know how to help each other. It's pretty amazing.
There's so many things going on, and the kids are constantly active. It would look like it's unstructured, but they're so involved in what they're doing. They all talk together and about their different subjects, and it looks like a thunderstorm to me.
Progress. And as teachers soon realize that when structure is out of the classroom as far as kids sitting in lines and rote memory is part of learning, and they get into a true student engaged classroom, students should take responsibility for their own learning, and as a result, they are all going in different directions.
Creativity is key, really, because if he can tap into what a student is interested in, it sparks so much more creativity. And I don't know, I think he's a master at that. When I go in and I see the kids, how excited they are, and the things that they've created, whether it's novels or movies or commercials, they feed off of it, and it ignites them, and they get energized, and that's what it's all about.
You might see a young man with slouchy pants sitting on a couch with earbuds and an iPad, feet up on the coffee table. Another child might come up to you and say, would you like something to drink? And offer you some type of coffee or tea. You might see 2 or 3 kids sitting at a center table with a computer, and they're hovering over it, working on GarageBand or some kind of video maker. It's not what you'd think it would be. You're not going to walk in there and see rows and kids quiet while the teacher is talking.
The work is hard. It's at a high level, but because it has been brought to such a relevant level to them, I don't know that the kids really realize that they are, mastering all of these skills that they're supposed to master before they get out of high school. It's more of a learning experience, and I think that it prepares them for college. We've had students come back and say, thank you for teaching me like this. It made going to college so much easier for me, and I understood what to do in these classes. So the rigor is there, the relevance, oh my goodness, if you can, I've never seen anybody make a classroom so relevant to a teacher make things so relevant to their students.
Your classroom now obviously has evolved from that standardized education classroom where you have 140 students. with the alternative classroom, it is so one-on-one, and yet group-oriented at the same time. It's a crazy mix of group projects and individual projects, and there's just everybody is doing something different, and yet you've set the standard where not only do they hold themselves accountable, but they hold each other accountable, which is, if you went back to these kiddos' home campus and talked to their teachers that had said this kiddo's not going to make it, and said, hey, what would you say if I told you that Jimmy is not only holding himself accountable, Jimmy is also now an authoritative voice in the classroom saying, hey, this type of behavior doesn't fly here. I appreciate it that you want to mess around, but that's not what we do here. We get our work done, and so that's a fun thing to watch a kid go through that change and become an adult and become a responsible citizen.
What I feel like Mark Williams does that's the most amazing is that he takes students and Mark brings them along and pushes them to a place where there's almost a frustration or a dissonance, and he gets them to that place. He lets them hit the wall, and then he kind of walks around the wall and invites them to climb over.
Well, what's going on behind the scene is a prodding. I think Mark prods his kids to really delve into a subject, not just on a superficial level. Don't just answer this, but determine why it is and why you think it is and why you believe you're right or somebody else is wrong.
Differentiation is Mark Williams' classroom. I feel like as you go in, there wouldn't be two things happening at the same time with the same kid. Never is there some child or some student that is doing the same thing or doing something that somebody else has already done. It's all brand new, all unique to the student. Differentiation, it's interesting as kids come into his classroom, some kids don't know the Mark Williams way, and so they come in and they are still lost in the typical education system. I don't want to be here. There's nothing you can offer me. And so they have that look on their face, and they're sitting right next to a kid that is working and wanting to stay longer. Hey, can I stay through the period? Hey, I know I'm supposed to go home, but how about I stay and work harder? And you have both those going on, and it works, and kids are teaching kids. Kids are answering questions that other kids are giving. Students are engaging other students. And Mark is just back watching and orchestrating the process.
You can't just walk in and say, "Oh yeah, I see what's going on." The kids are the one that are driving the machine, and Mark is prodding that thought process the whole time. And it's not just for one kid; it's for the 12 or 15 kids that he has doing the 12 or 15 assignments at a time. So it's pretty amazing, yeah.
Technology is used because it's the communication and the device that students use. It's used because it's the right modality to teach kids. It's the language of their generation. It's what they use. It's what they know. It's what they understand. But they're not dependent upon technology. They're using technology to learn and for their own gain. And so rather than technology entertaining them and being flashy and keeping their attention, like it's often used in education, instead the kids are learning and growing and using technology to further that, so using it in the context of their lives. So creative disobedience in the future, every kid is an at-risk kid. There is not a kid that walks into a classroom that says, I want to do it the way everybody has always done it before me. Every kid is in some ways at risk, and we are losing kids at huge rates. And what Mark Williams does in his classroom is he doesn't allow that to take place. He demands that a student learns and understands the process, and that the student doesn't just do what everybody's done before them, because that's why they are going against the system. They see the system. They see the system as broke. They see the system as not helpful to themselves, and so they're swimming upstream against the system.
Williams is a salesman. at heart, he won't admit that because nobody wants to be a salesman. Ask the insurance salesman. Nobody wants to be a salesman. But those guys that are great at sales are great at relationships. And that's what Williams does. Is a kiddo will walk into his classroom and they'll sit down, but they'll have, a 30 or 45 minute face-to-face conversation that the kiddo thinks, man, this person is genuinely invested in wanting to know me. And while that is true, it's also the best informal assessment I've ever seen anywhere. It is, through the course of that conversation, he's going to find out what their interests are, what they're good at. If they do like to read, what do they love to read? If they don't like to read, what would be the topic that would pique their interest, and pull that out of them. Same thing with writing, that goes hand in hand. What they like to read about would probably what they enjoy writing about as well. And so they'll sit at that table right over there, and after that 30-minute conversation, not only does he know where they've been and what they're good at, he also knows what their deficiencies are, what they need to work on, and usually what it's going to take to get them there.
I think the coolest thing about Mark's room in teaching and the learning going on in the room is we have this practice in education. We want to take apart good teaching and best practice, and we want to deconstruct it into its finest pieces, and we want to teach everybody we can each of those pieces and assume they can copy it. And you can't do that in Mark's room, because all the best practices, all the high impact yield strategies, DI, differentiation, everything is in there all the time, and you can't take one apart from the other.
As soon as the kids realize that Mark cares about them, they're pretty much his, I would say. The kids become his. And it's kind of like he becomes so important in their world that they're willing to do extraordinary things.
For me, he's the guy right there with me, finding the knowledge out for the first time all over again, or some new perspective on it. It's exciting. It's exciting, and it's real, and it is non-traditional. It's scary. It is. It seems like chaos. Process. I think one of the hardest things that we have to do as teachers is let our students fail. I'm a parent of 2 kids, and I certainly don't want them to fail. It's hard to pass that on. It takes a lot of love. It takes a lot of patience, and it takes wisdom. It takes wisdom to know your students in a way that you allow them to fail over and over and over again, but to encourage them along the way. The solution is at hand. Keep searching, keep searching. That's what Mark Williams does in the classroom.
I think technology serves the highest purpose in his room for education, in that it is something for the kids to use in order for learning to take place. Relevance is instantaneous because of the technology, and they love to do it. But also kids realize, especially as high school kids at this point, kids realize that the information's always there, and they can get the information, and they don't want to listen to somebody give it to them. And so the technology is their access point, and it's what they're used to having as an access point. And so he uses that to his advantage.
And watching them go through the process of feeling like they can't do it, then feeling like they can do more than that, and then feeling like they want to do it, and how could they be a part of making it better. That's the best thing that's happening in Mark Williams' classroom. In Williams' classroom, the rigor is at a high standard. what kids are learning and the way that they're thinking and the complex questions that they're answering is off the charts. But it's done in the context of relationship. It's done in the context of communication and questions asked and questions answered and questions not answered and questions wondering about things. And I don't know. We'll have to get back to that tomorrow and letting them hang on not knowing. Kids are driving the educational process. I oftentimes see Mark as a guide while the kids are learning and pushing and trying to know more. Mark is anticipating their next question and making sure they're going the right direction.
I also love and want to come back to, because I think it's so important and it's been so foreign to education in the past, we have been the tellers. Teachers have been the tellers of. Teachers have been after the one right answer. Teachers have been after the quickest way to open the brain and pour it in. And we have not been very much after what should come from that. And we have not been very much after what is possible above and beyond that. Through first Mark Williams and alternative education, we've been able to see that what's most important is what kids do with what we're able to walk along and talk with them about. And what kids can give back, what kids can come up with that we never would be able to come up with. That's the walk that Mark Williams does with his kids. He's not the teller. He certainly is the advisor and facilitator and confidant and counselor and oftentimes even the get back in liner. But he believes in their ability as a human being to both solve problems and to make things better and to fully enjoy the world that they're walking into. I want to be sure the jurors understand that.
Wow, you nailed it.
Is there anything else?
No, yeah, I can't even believe
Can
you
you
gave
think of?
such depth and complexity. You do get what we do, or what we're trying to do.
I
You really
do.
do.
And you do it.
Yeah.
And more other people are doing it. More and
You
more
can-
other people are doing it.
The first few years at Travis were tough because I was already trying to do this in a traditional classroom. Jay let me, but I ran into a lot of obstacles. There was a lot of black holes at Travis. And as I've reached out more across the district, it's taken me 10 years finally to reach all the major high schools. And we're doing a crowdsourced iBook. We're going to have a book on iTunes this next year in October. We've been working on it last year and this year. And the kids are doing it. We showed them what to do. They learned it. Now they've been taking it over. But Elaine Laughlin at PD and just different people have encouraged it. We're going to have the first crowdsourced book in Texas by students. How cool. So to me, what I want them to do is what hadn't been done yet. Let's go do that, and let's make it authentic.
Right.
And that's what they're doing. And you get it. So I'm pretty happy to know that I get to keep trying this stuff, and I got some backers.
And yes. And kids want to give back. Every human being wants to give back to the world.
Absolutely.
We make it hard for them most of the time. You don't.
Yeah.
Mark, thank you.
Thank you for letting me do this.
Keep me posted.
I will, absolutely. This is
But I realize that there are many great thinkers in education that
Absolutely.
are up for this award. And it's going to be very tempting for those jurors to select someone that the whole world knows already. And rightfully so, and well done and good, because the work that all of those men and women that you're nominated with has moved us all forward. And we are grateful. But most days in the world, there are thousands of teachers across the nation. There are millions of teachers across the world who have made this life choice. And it is a life choice. It is not a job. It's a life choice. They have made it. You have made this life choice. We all have made it. And we do it without any accolade. We take under the large umbrella of education, we take a beating in the media almost every day. We take a beating. We don't even have the support in most states of our legislators and politicians anymore. We have no cover. But these anonymous men and women who are excellent teachers, and by far the majority of them are excellent teachers fighting for kids every day. They walk through the world, they have made this life choice to be a teacher, and they have no one who is an everyday teacher like them that has been recognized. And for me, if the jurors have the courage and the confidence to recognize you, Mark, with this award, they will be recognizing all of the anonymous teachers in the nation and in the world who do this every day and who have, no one knows they do it beyond the children that walk into their classroom every day. And I don't know how to say that eloquently, but that's what it means to me. If you win, then all of us who will never write a book, all of us who will never be quoted, all of us who will never do marvelous research in the field of education, all of us will have been recognized on that day.
I see a lot of evidence of a lot of things at North Heights. I think those individuals that you named have given great contributions to education in general.
When you look closer at that kid on the couch, he's analyzing a film for author's purpose and technique. How the message that the filmmaker wanted to achieve was created and constructed. I mean, he's working at such a deeper analysis of To Kill a Mockingbird and comparing that to the text and how that was transformed. And then you look perhaps over to that table of the kids over the computer. And you're looking at it, and you are watching them with the video that they've already created. And you think it's some kind of silly thing that they're doing, making a little documentary about life in high school. You know, oh, how trite is that? But then when you talk to them a little more, you realize that they have already done the filmography, cinematography, the analysis, the comparison to the text. And they are imitating those same shots within what they're doing in their own movie. And so you almost have to look at what they're doing with a different layer of meaning than you would expect. And skills, they've taken something that he's really good at that no one would ever use in an English classroom in a traditional high school. And he's able to interact and connect with it in a way at a deep level that most people never get to. You might walk over from this group right here to, I remember going in there and there was a young lady and a young man working. And the young lady was working on her memoir. And she was imitating some of the structures from an author, a contemporary author, not somebody from the canon, you know, white old dead guys. She was analyzing the way that author described a difficult experience and was figuring out how she could use that to say what she needed to say and communicate it to people in a mature, effective, poignant way. Very fluid, very high energy, but very purposely structured around some principles, mainly understanding the culture of the students for which he teaches. And I don't mean those kids, because we're finding in every environment that we have is that kids just now won't. They are refusing everything we give to them. They're not listening to us. They're not turning in their homework. They're not reading anything. They're not participating in class. They're not filling out the worksheets. And you talk to them and you ask them why they won't do that. You know, if you would just turn it in. Sometimes they will have done it If you would just turn it in, you would pass. And they will not if it doesn't have meaning and relevance to their own personal direction. And what Mark does is he's able to find out what those interests are and what those desires are. Even if this kid comes in and says, what are you going to do whenever you grow up? I'm going to be a rapper. Okay, he takes them really from where they are. And maybe they don't end up being a rapper. They end up being a writer. And they end up using some of that stuff to go into an advanced course in writing whenever they go to college. He finds a way to get into the way they learn. He also knows that they're not going to really, they keep their stuff as a bookmark in their brain. He knows that. And so he utilizes the technology in a way that makes sense to the kids. And he has the kids teaching him about how they want to use that technology. It's not something that he says, you do it this way, and lines out a row of marbles. It's because they're going to roll off the table. He lets the students construct their own knowing, which I think that's the other thing that's the main difference that I see in the classroom as far as educational theory goes. We have a big problem that most of our teachers were acculturated in a behaviorist model. Well, the behaviorist model was designed for schools in which we were creating people for the industrial age. We needed people who could do the same thing repeatedly and not think and not question and just do what they needed to do. Kids won't do that because they know that none of that is relevant. And they're going to refuse it every single time. They don't know what they're going to be doing, but they know what they're not going to be doing. So what I see is, after studying and trying to figure out really what is it that he's doing, I had to really think about what was going on. So he's helping them access that information. The second part comes in with that conference. They've accessed the content, they've figured out whatever it is that they need to know, and then they apply. He helps them apply a meaningful context for their work. That's where the craft comes in, is because you know your TEKS or your curriculum or your standards or whatever it is. You also know the level of the kid. Classroom. Yep. So when Mark is helping them apply that, he has several ways and structures that he can do that. And it's all with the student turning it back to them to do the work. And I'm telling you, these are the same kids who will not do the other kind of stuff. They wouldn't do a worksheet if it killed them. But these kids will stay and come and work way past school hours that you have to tell them to leave. Go home. We're locking the door.
I've thought about Mark Williams' work in terms of the buzzwords of education and the really important theories of education that are important to us. I've thought about differentiated instruction, thought about Dr. Payne's work with poverty, what Marzano has to say about doing, about what really works when you're helping students to learn. Of course, all the things in technology that are coming out. Dr. Ken Robinson, Daniel Pink, those are huge drivers of even what is going on in very conservative Amarillo, Texas. You can find the very best of what all of those men and women say about education and about what is good for kids in Mark Williams' room. And you're going to see it lived out in each individual student. I said before, and I sincerely mean it, in Mark's classroom, there are no dividers between the human beings in that classroom. They are all human beings. However, every one of their life experiences, each of their cultures, each of their life situations, those are respected and those are celebrated and those are seen as strengths in that classroom. And I think that when you walk into Mark's classroom and you listen to all the social learning and the talk that goes on, that's one of the most wonderful things you're going to hear, is the respecter of each other, the respect of when you come from poverty, that gives you a certain strength and a certain contribution to our conversation that others around the table can't give. And when you come from a life filled with enrichment and opportunity and affluence, that you bring strengths that no one else brings to this table. And all of those strengths work together for us as we're trying to learn what we need to learn to participate in our democratic society. It truly is about empowering human beings and human intelligence in all of its wonderful scope.
The next thing is huge, that I think as a societal trend we're missing a lot of, and as practitioners, just people in general, is reflection. When do we stop and look at what we've done? So what I see in Mark's classroom is that it just never stops. Because after the kid who wrote the poem and was published, he would look at it and he says, I wish I would have done this differently, because now I've learned about parallel structure, and I think if in the second stanza I had repeated that same structure, wow, when does that happen? So that kind of reflection is going on. The other thing that I think is absolutely critical, and I find, I was telling you about this book, What Video Games Can Teach Us About Literacy and Learning. And what the way video games are designed is that people have a chance to contribute. And the way the things that kids are really doing a lot with games and Facebook and any kind of thing, they're contributing. They're creating content and they're contributing. And in Mark's classroom, when I walk in there, I see kids contributing to each other, to the learning of someone else, even though they're not doing the same thing. Maybe encouragement even. They're creating a product that they're going to be able to share, and it's going to be able to use to change something that they really care about. And in the traditional classroom, I don't see that as much. I don't see that many kids being able to contribute during the lesson.
I don't think you could find a better teacher than him, just in the way he's impacted my life, and I want to be an English teacher because of him. He gets to know what makes you tick and get you hyped about learning. He set me on the right direction. I'm grateful for that.
Mr. Williams has changed my whole aspect on life. He's a good influence on all the kids here. Even kids that don't have him as a teacher will go into his room and just sit down and talk to him. He's kind of our mentor. He's just let me realize who I am and what I'm capable of doing, and that one person can change the world. He's a good inspiration. Thank you. He knows why.
And I found several categories of approach. The first one being that Mark allows his students to access the information on their own. He connects them with resources, with people. I mean, we've got community members and these kids leaving class and driving to Pantex to talk with an engineer. We've got business leaders from the downtown revitalization area coming in to talk with the kids and interview them about how you plan urban development and how you deal with poverty. The connecting, it's whatever met what the child decided that they needed to know. And then Mark is able to weave in the language arts skills, because reading and writing and listening and speaking are all involved with whatever the text or the genre. And that's where the skill comes in. That's what the teacher is doing. So Mark is completely, how does he have time to do that? Well, he's completely taken himself out of the delivery mode. He's not shoving stuff down anybody's throat. He is designing experiences and connecting the kids to resources to allow them to be able to do that. Then they come to him in conference and he processes and says, have you thought about this? He's cognitively coaching these kids into what they need to be doing. We're raising people to think, to consume information and then transform it into something else or create something completely new.
iPads may cost a few bucks, but they're not just the newest technology to take the world by storm. They're also making an impact in a pilot program in an Amarillo classroom. Pro News 7's Steve Myers has the fourth part of our series on education tonight with a look at how the iPads are changing the way students are learning.
Why don't we try to get your email so we can put you on Google Docs and have you in the system.
It's just another day at North Heights for teacher Mark Williams. As an alternative school, the students are encouraged to try new and different ways of learning, including the newest tech tools and gadgets, like these iPads for each student in his class.
We've had iPads for 2 months, Steve, and what I find is, and they do every kind of project you can think of. They do remediation, they do prep work, writing, they do everything. They do reading. It forces them to have to take what they would traditionally learn and find ways to enhance that through the iPad.
These students are part of the digital generation, which gives them a step up in an electronic classroom.
We have these great theorists, and we have teachers who use mid-20th century lesson planning techniques to teach new great concepts and ideas. I've got a book of PowerPoints from college professors on the work of other theorists. Williams can throw that out the window. He can actually take the theories those people are using, are creating, and put them in place in a practical way that the student meets the challenge head on.
Even though they're doing real educational, rigorous work.
And while there's always a temptation to go play online, these students know they have to be responsible.
Not only is it a privilege, but it's a responsibility, but and it makes it easier for us to learn instead of, just the plain and simple pen and paper textbooks.
For Williams, the iPad makes learning a two-way street.
Every day these kids teach me something new, especially about technology.
Steve Myers, Pro News 7.
The North Heights students are also using iPads to create a documentary about the school to show how progressive it is. It'll be released next month.
Never dull in the classroom. And have this audience just welcoming and feel like it's just away from home. It's just somewhere you can go, and classroom is just where you want to be. It's instantly welcoming, comfortable, and it just works in so many ways. Being a teacher now, the things that I will take from Mr. Williams, my own, integrate them into my own teaching, will be to not just be a teacher. I have never had a teacher that was really just a friend and teacher as well, but never felt so much like a friend. He interacts with his students in ways that you just don't hear teachers interact these days. Mr. Williams is not traditional paper pencil, but it is so many different things. It's conversations, it's presentations, it's just interacting with the classmates at some point. It's videos and movies and projects like that you just don't see, and it's fun, and you want to do things, and it makes you want to do your work, and you want to actually put the effort into your work. You don't just do it to get the grade. You put this effort because you care about it, and you want to do it, and you want to present it. He reaches out to his students in so many ways that no one does, and no one deserves this more than him, more than Mr. Williams.
He is 17 and working on a solo album, but the passion doesn't stop there for high school student Chris Young. He's putting education first, and one of his teachers has taken notice. Pro News 7's Sarah Davidson has the story.
You see those words over there? I want you to kind of be on your own now, but you kind of look.
It's class as usual for 17-year-old Chris Young, and the one-on-one help from his English teacher, Mr. Williams, is there when he needs it.
If it weren't for him, I don't think I would have got as far, or I wouldn't have been Yeah, as far as I am now.
If you turn up the volume loud enough, it's apparent that this partnership goes beyond the textbook.
There's no better platform for changing the world than a classroom. Mark Williams understands that from the alternative classroom he has built from the ground up at North Heights Alternative, from the students he comes in contact with every day, the other educators, other teachers such as myself, who look to what Mark Williams is doing as sort of a guidepost for what ought to be done. It's growing, and it's growing like a wildfire from his classroom to mine, and hopefully to the other educators I interact with. Our students are going to take these philosophies, these ideas, these great challenges, these abilities to solve problems on their own. They're going to carry those into the world. They're going to use those in non-educational settings, and they're going to be teachers too. I'm sure that there are going to be teachers from North Heights, from Mark Williams' classroom. Those students are a lot like I was as a student. Not very motivated, a little bit put off by the traditional classroom setting. But his students found their place in his laboratory.
So what I see Mark doing is taking all these great theories, like from Marzano and Harry Wong, and he applies them. He puts them to use. He uses them every day. Every student, there's something applicable every single time. So he knows how to utilize them and get the best from his students.
Is based authenticity and being relevant. You know, there are so many classes in the United States, in the world probably, that a lecture is given, an assignment is given, the assignment is graded, another lecture is given, another assignment is given. At the end of the week there will be a formal assessment, the grade will go in the grade book, and we will begin the process again on Monday. There are a lot of teachers that have a degree of success with that. There's a much smaller percentage of teachers who stretch that and make it more of a project-driven, experiential type learning, where they just give the students a direction and let them go, and that's outstanding. What you see in Williams' classroom is an even bigger step past that, in that instead of a hypothetical or theoretical project, it's the real world deal. You are actually writing an app that's going to go on someone's iPhone or iPad or whatever. You are actually working with a Texas landmark in the Big Texan Steakhouse that is a Route 66 icon, and you are working with those businessmen to put together a plan for one of their projects. It's not hypothetical, it's not theoretical. It is something that if it goes well, he will make more, the Big Texan will make more money. If it does not go well, they're going to take a hit. And so there is an actual real world risk reward element to those projects. And those are just two examples. But the authenticity is absolutely there.
Ended up in the book, and I was actually pretty lucky in that both of my works made it into the book. Going back to the book signing, we go to the book signing, and my family, my uncles, my mom, my grandmother showed up, and it showed me that they were supporting what I was doing. And I wasn't expecting as big of a turnout as we got. And so I'm sitting there, and we still have pictures of it, signing books and with my fellow students at North Heights, doing all of that, not to mention seeing my family there. It was a good day for me to be able to see that. I'm probably going to get a little emotional here about it, but sitting there signing those books, doing something that I thought only astute writers could do, it gave me that sense of accomplishment.
Mark finds out who his students are and what makes them tick. And to accomplish that, he's got to be studied on the culture. In Amarillo, Texas, the culture is everything from Burmese refugees to high school jocks in affluent communities in our city, and everything in between. What does it take to know that culture? Well, it takes knowing everything from what's on MTV to what's in the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. Mark knows the statistics of baseball pitchers, and he knows jazz musicians. He's a well-rounded person. He uses this to be able to teach in a well-rounded way to his students, and his students become diverse people who are able to work and function and excel in a society that increasingly places a premium on diversity and the willing and the ability to be able to learn in a fast-changing culture. Education came alive. It was no longer a model of teacher versus student. It wasn't even the model of Socrates, of teacher pulling, from the students. But it was the model of Mark leading a group of people with him, taking what they do, what they know, what they do best, and using that to build on knowledge useful for them to be successful in life.
Because I think most people say it's a family, because whenever you're in another school, it's like it's just teachers and you're just another person in the campus, but in here you're someone, you actually mean something to someone. This school is way better than all the other home campuses.
You had opportunities here you wouldn't have had elsewhere.
Oh no.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, I got to learn a lot of, like in Newswire, I got to learn how to edit and make videos and how to talk to important people.
That's pretty big though, actually, yeah.
I remember I used to be all super shy, and now it's like I can talk.
I just threw you to the wolves. I sent you out there and you have to do it.
Yeah.
Didn't you have to shoot a picture one time by yourself? We sent you out by yourself?
Yeah, and I was like super self-conscious about, oh my god, am I gonna get this wrong? It's like, what if this is not a good picture? But in the end, practicing and just doing it, and then like you, Mr. Williams, you give us confidence. And
my experience in North Heights changed my life. I don't think I would have gone to Tech if it weren't for talking to you. It was a big, I tell people that I went here and stuff, and I'm at a Big 12 university. It's not like, oh, I didn't go there. I had it on my Facebook at one point. It really changed my life. I did so much stuff here that I didn't think was, possible to do as a high school student. And I just went a different way with my life, and it's awesome. And I was thinking about just going to AC and then maybe WT in a couple of years, and then I talked to you and saw that Tech was more of a possibility and stuff. And it taught me how to be a more well-rounded person and less uptight. It really helped me to become a better person overall, and I can't put a value on the relationships I made here. I'll be close to y'all for the rest of my life, I hope, but it's just awesome. And
5 years is usually all we give them, but that's fine. Yeah, whatever you think. Yeah.
I know, but it's
special.
yeah, it's really, I just can't even put a value on it. When people ask, oh, who's on my Facebook or something, or my Twitter, and they ask, who's that guy? And I'm like, oh, that's the coolest guy ever. And him, or people asked how I knew Kobe in the beginning. They're like, how did you know him? And I was like, oh, well, his dad's my principal. And I would go on about how awesome you guys were, and how I was like, they were just the coolest people ever. They're my best friend. Well, they're just so cool. So
What I always thought in the relationship that we had was that you didn't want to disappoint me. But did you know, from my standpoint, I didn't want to disappoint you as a teacher?
see, and I never knew
Yeah,
that.
you never think that.
I actually used your projects, the magazine, the fringe does, and then that little thing I did. I don't even know how to call
What,
it.
the Forever for Everyone PSA
No,
commercial?
but that I actually used both of those in my application to tech. Like, it made a huge difference. It made, when I sit here and say that North Heights is one of the best experiences of my life, and it changed my life and I love it so much, part of it was because those two projects. It made me feel, and things, being in charge of things like that, or being that involved and loving things that much, made me feel ready to go to a Big 12 college and feel. I just know it helped me so much. The more catered, I guess, like, it sounds, but catered to like my personality and who I was as a person. Curriculum helped me tremendously in all aspects of my life. It was awesome.
There too.
Well, the projects were in themselves, they were extremely beneficial to how I, function in college well, and how I'm going back next semester, and how I succeeded in college. I did very well. That was part of it, but that part, those projects and everything, they wouldn't have been there if it weren't for the relationships. Had I not been close to you, and had I not close to Mr. Leach, I wouldn't have had the confidence or even the kind of the drive to do as well as I did in those projects. And also the friends that I've made, and I still talk to them, and I have friends when I come back to Amarillo and I hang out with friends that I made here, and I still come and visit you guys and stay here. Interacting with the kids here not necessarily in a leadership way, but interacting with so many different kids, because I was here for so long, I really think it helped me become a more well-rounded person in different, they had different backgrounds than I did, or different, and I still interacted with them, and they became my close friends, and it really helped me see how much more there was out there in the world. And college is obviously a very, very diverse place, and this was very similar in a lot of different ways, like the big projects and spending so long on something, and the variety of people is very similar to my experiences in college.
In real life, we have to deal with people, actual real people that come from all different kinds of walks of life. If we get that in a high school and a controlled environment, and we get to meet people, so figure out tools actually, to help us meet and converse with all these other people, and we get to utilize that and go out in the real world. We went in high school and we learned all that. Basically, this is what I want to integrate, everything that, this is why I'm so excited to actually, be a part of this, because this is what I want. This is kind of the pathway of the future that I want to be in, and I want to be a part of it.
What about the collaborative effort and types of things we give you to collaborate on here at North Heights? What makes it different than what you've done before in terms of collaboration?
You don't get with the same group of people to do projects. You kind of group with different people for different things.
You don't group with your clique?
No, you don't stick to a clique.
There is no clique.
Yeah, everybody is a clique. They're just one giant clique. It's like we're learning through associations.
Mm-hmm. We learn from each other. We benefit, definitely. Very beneficial, being around people.
So how?
It does, because you interact with people, and what do? We converse. When we converse with people, we gain knowledge. It's just a continual growing thing. We never stop learning. We're always just feeding off of each other. It's great. It's just truly an incredible thing.
Whoever said that learning had to stop at schools?
No.
It shouldn't. Learning shouldn't stop at schools. When you do anything, you're learning about, yourself, or you're learning about, a specific thing you want to go into.
Completely different. Like, this year I started to, get so uninterested in school. It was so boring and monotonous and repetitive.
Before you came to North Heights?
Yes.
Okay.
This is earlier this year. And so I moved over here and everything changed. I started getting my classes done again. I started doing my work. I actually have my wrist hurting from writing and stuff.
But
now.
why? What's so different? They're talking about the way we need to change education. Well, what is so different here that's making you do that?
Just the environment. It's not like, it doesn't seem like you're doing work whenever you're actually doing it. It just feels like you're doing what you want to do.
But you're not doing what you want to do.
Yeah, you're actually learning.
Yeah.
It's not school.
What did you just say?
It's not school.
It's not school.
And yet you passed your tax?
Yep.
You guys care a lot. He cares about what people what the kids what they feel in here. You just give them a chance to express everything with the painting, writing, and just the fringe. Just give them a chance to express everything, how their life story is. If it's just anything, I love it.
What makes a good teacher in your eyes? What skills or what do they bring to the table that makes them a good teacher?
Who I think from my point, a teacher who just cares about everybody and just takes the time to just give them the time that they need to help them and just be there, not just for a teacher, but as a friend, you know?
I have to say intelligence, like, that's definitely a really important thing. Being able to just, like Mr. Williams, for example, just knowing just like a little bit of everything. Just,
a little bit of everything.
You talk about one thing and he'll just right off the top of his head, he'll know something about that topic, whatever it may be. And bringing it down to where, because essentially we're children, but bringing it down from such an intellectual level to to where a child can understand it, because that's what we are. That's just the greatest thing, to have that and people that know how to do it, and it's really great to be able to learn that way.
It's just like every day when I come in, it's still just like that everybody knows me. I just feel so loved. Like, I don't even have to know you guys, but hello, it just makes me feel good that you guys will take the time to say hello and good morning to me.
We want to move the ship, and what Mark does in the classroom is moving the ship, and it's moving the ship one child at a time. Mark asked me to think about what his pedagogy was, and I wrestled with that. I had some long sentences, but for me, Mark's pedagogy is creativity and innovation and real life, and it's empowering human intelligence and the human spirit. And that pedagogy is appropriate for the most impoverished, which Mark has in his classrooms, to the very wealthy, the very experienced, the very life-enriched student that walks through the door. So that may not be the traditional definition of pedagogy, but it is what I think pedagogy in education needs to be, and it's what Mark lives out in his classroom. I think we in education have almost built up a barrier ourselves, and that the fear that what works in alternative education won't work in traditional classrooms is largely non-existent, or an imaginary barrier. I think that what Mark does in his classroom, which if you walked in his classroom, there are the traditional four walls, and there are the traditional haphazard arrangement of desks and tables and odd chairs. But what happens in those four walls in alternative education in Mark's classroom can happen, and is happening more and more in traditional classrooms. And what is happening in there is sometimes a board meeting, sometimes a challenge session, sometimes counseling sessions, sometimes group argument, sometimes it's group brainstorm, and sometimes it's everyone working at their own work. So it's traditional, but it's not traditional. But all classrooms have four walls and an odd desktop computer and an arrangement of chairs and desks. That learning is social in an alternative classroom is not unique to that classroom. Learning is social in a traditional classroom. We shouldn't set up class alternative versus traditional because we all have human beings in our classroom. Now, Mark's a leader in the field of how to empower human intelligence and how to grow human beings. And he's been very far thinking in our district in that respect, but that can transfer, and Mark makes every effort every day to help those of us in the traditional realm see that it can transfer. It's a trust issue, really. It's a trust that what was good for us in 20 years ago is not, the world is not the same. And we aren't sure what that new world is, and we're afraid to trust that if we have our kids talking, if we have them involved in real world, real life problems, the dirty problems that we try to protect our kids from, if we put those out on the table and we ask them to work with us on those, that we are preparing them for the world that they're going to walk into. Amarillo believes in the human spirit, and we believe in each one of our children. Mark just helps us know better how to bring the very best and most creative and most thoughtful and contributing characteristics out of our children.
And I know most people would have to say something like that in this setting. I know him well enough. I don't even feel like I have to say that. That's fine. But you're talking about a guy who readily welcomes kids into his life with the love and acceptance of an ideal foster dad. He approaches his job very much like that. He understands that the kiddos in his classroom will be transient in his classroom, but permanent in his life. You're talking about a guy who has taken kiddos into his own home, and if that means, hey, you just need a place to stay tonight because you got kicked out yesterday, yeah, that's fine. If that means a week, if that means 3 weeks, a month, a summer, that's whatever it takes to get you where you need to be going. That's what he's going to do. He can speak to kiddos in their vernacular. He makes a point of staying current with hip hop culture and rock culture and indie culture and anything that he thinks might appeal to. So the educational track for most of the folks who are ever going to watch this is grew up in a nurturing home. High school graduation is a foregone conclusion. College graduation is a foregone conclusion. And for a lot of us, graduate degrees, whether it be the lowly master's or the PhD, that is unassumed. And a lot of these kiddos are coming from a place where there is a level of accomplishment just getting to high school, let alone your junior or senior year in high school, let alone being within 3 or 4 months of graduating, and just the dogged determination that he puts into making sure they understand that this, even though it's just a sheet of paper, it stands for so much more. That accomplishment, that stick-to-itiveness that it took to get that is something that I think most of us really can't wrap our minds around, because we came from that place of, that was the expectation handed down to us. If we had been that 17-year-old mother of a 1-year-old that's also having to work full time, I'm gonna be completely honest. Junior English is not going to be my highest priority, but there is just something in what he does that conveys to them, it's not just junior English, it is learning in general and continuing to better yourself and continuing to travel down that path of enrichment and enlightenment and just a betterment of yourself. The great thing about Mark is he is acutely aware of the fact that he is the elected representative. He not only does he represent the thoughts and beliefs of his campus, which is a unique campus, but he understands and he knows that there are many people out there with the same dogged determination and the same attitude towards accepting and loving kiddos wherever they are, and the same, hey, I'm going to meet you where you are, I'm going to take you where you need to go, and we will be in this fight together. He gets that there's more of those folks out there, and to be honest with you, in his most private moments, would probably say he's a little embarrassed that he's the one that got picked. Which is one of the endearing qualities about him. You don't get to see that humility out of him often, but when he does show it, you understand that it is genuine, and once you crack through the bravado, you know that he is genuinely invested in the improvement and the betterment of kids' lives, and he takes that responsibility very seriously.
Favorite, or one of the most powerful experiences I had with Mark and his kids was when Mark had his kids do a video explaining from their perspective what North Heights, the alternative high school, was about. There still is in our district some wondering about what goes on at North Heights alternative education, and somehow mostly the adults in this paradigm have set up this us and them. And if you go to an alternative education, there must be something wrong with you. Or you must not have been successful in this mainstream traditional rat race we put you in. And Mark's kids were disturbed by that. They were disturbed by that perception when they met that out in the world, when they met that out in the community. And in his classroom, where all disturbing issues and positive issues come to the table because Mark and his kids talk about real life and the truth, they decided that the best way to share with the world what is really happening at their school, in alternative education, at North Heights, what's really happening in school there. They wanted to show that to the world, and they created a video. This video was scripted by them, it was thoughtful, it was choreographed by them, the music created by those students. And what was powerful for me, I knew the content, what they had to say. That did not surprise me. But what was the most powerful for me was that Mark's kids were giving to the world through that video. They were giving hope to all students. They were contributing to making AISD better by educating us all about what happens in alternative education. And they were not denigrating traditional education. Not one word about what was wrong with or why they might not have fit in traditional education, or that it was someone else's fault, or that educators were doing anything wrong. They simply wanted the world to know that every human being is different, and every human being is at a different place in their life, and every human being deserves some choice and control in how they accomplish their education, how they work in the world, and how they express themselves. And I like very much, and I think the world needs much more of Mark Williams helping young human beings learn to contribute to the world and feel like they can contribute to the world.